4 people stopped for help on highways and got something much worse. I was driving through West Texas on Highway I-20 with $18,000 cash in my car. My daughter's college money was due in 2 days. The bank transfer had failed. The money was everything I had saved for her future. It was wrapped in rubber bands and put in a brown envelope. I could not protect it alone on roads this empty. The highway was empty at 11:30 at night. There was nothing but darkness and distant truck stops. They looked like dying stars against the black sky. My gas needle was getting low when red and blue lights appeared behind me. The police car looked real. It was a white car with the right light bar on top. Or maybe it was a copy, close enough to fool people in complete darkness. I stopped my car on the side of the road. My hands shook as I reached for my wallet. The desert heat still came up from the road like a hot oven. The officer walked toward me with a heavy flashlight. His footsteps made loud sounds on the gravel. Something felt wrong about his uniform. It was too new and too perfect for someone working night shift on a lonely highway. Most cops looked tired from years of hard work. His flashlight hit my window 3 times. It was harder than needed and had a pattern that felt practiced. The sound made me jump. I noticed his leather belt making creaking sounds as he moved with fake authority. Static from his radio filled the air, but the sounds were wrong. It was like recorded loops rather than real police talk. Real police dispatch includes timestamps and proper codes. "License and registration," he said through the glass. His voice was commanding. "We have had reports of suspicious activity in this area tonight. You match the description." I gave him my papers with shaking fingers. He looked at them with fake care. He shined his flashlight directly into my eyes until I had to look away. The badge on his chest looked real, but something about how he stood suggested he was not used to wearing the uniform. "Step out of the car, please. I need to search for drugs and check your story." My stomach dropped like a stone. The cash in my car might as well have been poison. If he found it, he would think the worst. I would never see my daughter's college money again. "Is there a problem, officer?" I asked. I tried to keep my voice steady. Fear made my throat tight. "There has been drug dealing through this area tonight. Everyone gets searched tonight, no exceptions. If these highway encounters worry you, like this to help others stay safe." I got out slowly. I kept my hands visible and moved carefully. He walked me to the back of my car. His flashlight beam moved across my license plate. That was when I noticed his patrol car had regular civilian plates. They were not the government plates that real police cars have by law. The radio static got louder. I heard the same phrase repeated every 30 seconds. "Unit 12, responding to traffic violation." The exact same words with the same voice tone. It was like someone playing a recording designed to sound official. "Open the trunk," he ordered, but I was already putting the pieces together. Real officers do not work alone on highway patrol. This is especially true at midnight on empty roads, where backup could be hours away. They have backup rules and radio check-ins that follow specific timing. "Actually," I said, "I dropped my keys on purpose onto the gravel. They rang like small bells. I will call this in to check your badge number." His whole attitude changed right away. The friendly mask fell away like cheap paint. "You do not need to call anyone," he said. His hand moved toward his gun. "This is routine procedure." But I was already running toward my car. Keys were tight in my fist. He shouted commands behind me, but I did not look back until I was locked inside with the engine running. The fake police car followed me for 12 miles. It matched my speed and stayed exactly 3 car lengths behind. Every time I changed lanes, he changed lanes with identical timing. The red and blue lights stayed on the whole time. They created the illusion of a real traffic stop. My phone finally got signal as we got close to Midland. I called 911 while driving. The dispatcher stayed on the line. She worked with real police units that had already been driving to catch someone they had been hunting for months. The fake police car gave up when I reached the edge of Midland. It disappeared into an industrial area where streetlights would make his civilian plates visible. I drove straight to the nearest real police station. Officers there confirmed my fears. This was not the first time they had heard this story. The man I had met was not law enforcement. He was just another highway hunter using fake authority to rob travelers. They had been tracking similar incidents across 3 states. The pattern always targeted people driving alone at night with out-of-state plates. The real officers walked with me to a bank the next morning. I made a secure transfer for my daughter's college money. She never knew how close she came to losing her education to a man with fake badges and recorded radio sounds. I still get nervous when pulled over even by real officers. Some uniforms hide predators who understand that people automatically trust authority figures. This is especially true when they are alone and scared on dark highways. The next case shows how even helpful service can become a deadly trap.
The M25 London Ring Road was backed up solid at 2 in the morning. Red taillights stretched ahead like a river of brake lights that never seemed to end. I had been driving since London going north for a job interview that could save my career from complete collapse. Student debt was crushing me at 847 pounds per month. This marketing position was my only shot at financial stability before my bank account ran out and destroyed everything. I stopped at Fleet Services, a motorway service area, for fuel and coffee. My hands were cramping from holding the wheel for 4 hours straight through stop-and-go traffic. The parking area was nearly empty except for a few trucks and one car that looked exactly like mine. Same model, same silver color, even the same small dent in the passenger door from a shopping cart incident last month that insurance refused to cover. A handle clicked on my rear door, then let go when I turned to investigate the sound. The parking area felt suddenly too quiet and exposed. I checked the exits. The matching car made my skin crawl, but I needed caffeine more than paranoia to stay alert. Inside the shop, bright lights buzzed over rows of energy drinks and stale sandwiches that looked days old. The clerk barely looked up from his newspaper. The air smelled of burnt coffee and cleaning chemicals that could not hide something bad underneath, something that made me want to leave quickly. When I returned to my car 5 minutes later, the other car was gone without a trace. But something felt different about mine. It was like returning to a room where someone had been going through your things while you were away. The seat position was slightly off, pushed back maybe an inch. The rear-view mirror angle had changed just enough to show a different view of the road behind me. I started the engine and continued north, but unease grew in my stomach like a cold stone that would not go away. Other drivers kept staring at my car through their windows with expressions of alarm and confusion. Some pointed and gestured to their passengers with urgent movements that made no sense for routine traffic on a normal night. The radio made crackling sounds with a traffic bulletin at 2:47 a.m. that made my blood freeze. Police seeking silver sedan, license plates November 77 Echo, involved in armed robbery series. My exact car description, down to the door dent that should have made it unique. Among thousands of similar cars? At the next service station, I understood why other drivers looked terrified when they saw me coming. A woman came toward my window as I parked. Her face was pale with genuine worry about my presence. She tapped on the glass with knuckles that sounded like bones against wood. Each knock echoed my growing fear. "Excuse me, but your car has been reported stolen," she said through the glass with shaking voice. "I heard it on the traffic news 5 minutes ago. Same make, model, and license plates exactly matching the bulletin." My blood went cold as she continued speaking with increasing panic in her voice. I showed her my documents through the cracked window, but she looked confused and frightened by what she was seeing. Her husband joined us, equally confused by the situation. They insisted they had heard my exact license plate number in a police bulletin about armed robberies across the motorway system that connected major cities. I called the police myself from inside my locked car with hands that shook as I dialed. The conversation was strange and frightening beyond anything I had experienced before. My car was not reported stolen according to their records. But another, identical car with my license plates was being used in armed robberies across 3 counties. Someone had cloned my entire car, right down to the door dent that made it supposedly unique. Like this story to help spread awareness about vehicle cloning. The officer explained that criminals sometimes create duplicate cars using stolen license plates and bodywork modifications that fooled most observers. But this was different and more sophisticated than simple plate theft or amateur work. Someone had copied my car perfectly, then positioned it strategically to frame me for their crimes while I drove the same route through areas covered by traffic cameras during the exact time of their crimes. I drove home, taking back roads and avoiding main routes where cameras might capture what looked like a stolen car. Every police car felt like a trap waiting to spring on someone driving a perfect copy of a criminal's getaway car. If the real criminal struck while I was on the road, I would be the prime suspect, caught on dozens of security systems, driving what appeared to be their car during the exact time of their crimes. The back road route took 3 hours longer than the motorway, but kept me away from major surveillance networks. It wound through villages where streetlights revealed my license plates to anyone who might be watching the news for updates on the robbery spree. Every junction felt like a potential arrest scene where armed police might surround me for crimes I never committed or even imagined. The investigation process took 3 weeks of legal hell and suspended employment while authorities tried to sort truth from lies. Police found the duplicate car abandoned in a Birmingham industrial area, stripped of identifying features. Inside was a detailed folder with photos of my daily routine and my car parked outside my apartment. Someone had been watching me for months, learning my patterns and planning the perfect identity theft. The photos were dated going back 4 months to times when I never noticed being watched or followed. Pictures of me leaving for work, shopping, visiting friends, buying groceries at my usual times. They knew my schedule better than I did, and had used that knowledge to create a criminal business using my identity while keeping me as an unwitting alibi. The most chilling discovery was a handwritten schedule of my movements for the next 2 weeks, written in careful block letters. They had planned to use my identity for a major heist while I was supposedly at my job interview, creating the perfect alibi. If I had not noticed the matching car that night, I would have become their permanent fall guy for every crime they committed using my stolen identity. To prove I was the real owner, I had to provide insurance documents showing when I bought the car. I showed them my key fob with the vehicle identification number that matched my registration. Service records from my mechanic proved the car's history. Even then, some officers remained suspicious until fingerprint evidence confirmed I was telling the truth. I got the marketing job after the investigation cleared my name, but I moved to Manchester afterward, leaving behind everything familiar. Some forms of identity theft go deeper than credit cards and bank accounts that can be replaced with paperwork. They had stolen my entire existence and nearly made me a fugitive from crimes I never dreamed of committing. Trust became impossible when anyone could be watching and planning to steal your life. Our third case shows how simple kindness on Canadian highways can lead somewhere terrifying.
The Trans-Canada Highway stretched through British Columbia mountains, where pine trees made the road look like it disappeared into darkness ahead. I was moving to Calgary to care for my father after his second stroke left him unable to live alone or manage his medication. Everything I owned was packed in my car because I had to give up my apartment. My entire life was reduced to boxes and bags that held 15 years of memories. Before leaving Vancouver, I had called the care home where my father was staying temporarily. He had another small episode yesterday, the nurse told me over the phone. Nothing serious, but he keeps asking when you are coming. The sooner you can get here, the better for his peace of mind. Snow started falling near Kamloops, with big wet flakes that stuck to my windshield and made driving dangerous on mountain curves. The radio warned of bad weather conditions ahead with possible highway closures. My old windshield wipers struggled to keep up with snow that got heavier every minute. That is when I saw him by the road, with his thumb out, looking desperate in the growing storm that could kill someone caught outside overnight. He looked harmless enough through the swirling snow that made everything look ghostly.
Middle-aged man wearing a thick coat and carrying a small backpack that seemed too light for winter travel. He stood under a bent highway sign that read, Calgary, 847 kilometers. When I stopped, he thanked me many times with gratitude that seemed genuine. He said he just needed to reach the next town before the storm trapped him in the open, where he would freeze to death. Road conditions are getting bad fast, he said, getting into the passenger seat with movements that seemed too comfortable. His coat sleeve touched my hand on the gear shift, and he did not move it away. Good thing you came along when you did, or I would be a frozen corpse for morning for sure. His knowledge of the area impressed me at first. With detailed information about road conditions, he pointed out shortcuts and warned about construction zones ahead with the confidence of someone who had driven these mountain routes for years. But something bothered me about how he kept checking his phone and giving me very specific directions that did not match my GPS route to Calgary. The pine air freshener hanging from my mirror could not hide a chemical smell that seemed to come from his backpack. Something sharp and medical that burned my nose when the heater blew air from his direction toward my face, where I had to breathe it in. Take the next exit, he said after we had driven 15 minutes through increasingly heavy snowfall. There's a better route that avoids the highway closure ahead, and it will save you time, despite what your GPS says about distance. I had not seen any closure signs, but the snow was getting heavier by the minute, making visibility poor. The exit led to a narrow secondary road that wound deeper into forest wilderness. No other cars were visible in either direction on pavement that looked less maintained. Pine trees pressed close to the road like dark walls that would close for good if I missed my next chance to turn back. My passenger changed completely once we were alone on the back road away from main traffic. He stopped making casual conversation and started giving directions with quiet authority that said he was in control now. His hand moved closer to the gear shift where I would have to touch it. His fingernails were stained with something dark that looked dried and permanent like old blood. Slow down here, he said with new confidence that made my skin crawl. There's something important I need to show you before we continue any further. Fear shot through me like electricity through cold water as I realized the truth. This was not random hitchhiking or simple directions to avoid highway closures during winter storms. He had been waiting for someone exactly like me. Someone traveling alone with their life packed in their car, someone vulnerable and isolated on empty roads where screams would echo off trees that had heard them before. I pressed the gas instead of the brake, feeling the car lurch forward on increasingly icy road surface. My passenger grabbed for the steering wheel with both hands, but I fought him off while trying to control the car. The car slid through patches of black ice that were invisible until you hit them and felt the wheels lose grip. You are making this much harder than it needs to be, he said with disturbing calm that suggested experience. I had planned to make this quick and relatively painless for both of us involved. His backpack fell open during our struggle, revealing contents that confirmed my worst fears. Inside were plastic zip ties and a roll of duct tape. Several small glass bottles held clear liquid that smelled like the chemical odor I had been breathing. The smell got stronger now, burning my nose and making my eyes water as I fought to keep control. I saw a scenic turnout ahead marked for mountain views and pretended to pull over by braking and signaling right. He relaxed slightly, thinking I was giving up to his control and authority, but at the last possible second, I jerked the wheel left and stayed on the main highway. My tires screamed against icy pavement as the car slid sideways toward the guardrail. At 2:17 p.m., I tried calling 911 on my phone while steering with one hand. The timestamp would later show exactly when his harassment began and how long it continued. But mountain terrain blocked the cellular signal just when I needed help most from authorities. The failed call attempt left me completely alone with a predator who knew these mountains better than any outside help that might eventually arrive. I managed to reach the main road again and pulled into a gas station with hands that shook so badly I could barely hold the steering wheel steady. My passenger got out without saying another word to me. He walked into the forest, disappearing between dark trees like he had never existed at all.
When I called police from the station, they told me 3 other drivers had reported nearly identical incidents on that same stretch of highway in the past month alone. All the victims were traveling alone with packed cars containing their possessions. They were moving their entire lives from one province to another during a vulnerable transition periods. The hitchhikers seemed to target people at their most desperate moments when they were isolated and carrying everything they owned in the world. Police found a well-organized camp deep in the forest with supplies suggesting he had been working that route for months. The camp contained restraints and chemicals that matched exactly what I had seen in his backpack during our fight. Maps showed other highways across the province where similar camps existed in locations chosen for maximum isolation from help. The investigation revealed he used weather reports to time his appearances perfectly during severe storms. He would position himself when desperate drivers might pick up hitchhikers they would normally avoid for safety reasons. His detailed knowledge of alternate routes allowed him to direct victims to predetermined locations where he could work without interruption from witnesses. When I finally reached Calgary, my father was waiting with worried eyes. "I thought something happened to you on those mountain roads. The news said there were accidents because of the storm." I never told him how close he came to losing his only son to something worse than weather. My mother was buried 3 days later in the family plot she had chosen when she was young and never imagined the dangerous journey her ashes would take. The service was peaceful with relatives who had traveled safely from across the province, but I flew home instead of driving back, unwilling to risk another encounter with predators who used weather and isolation as weapons. The final account comes from Australia, where vast distances become weapons against desperate travelers. The Pacific Highway, an SW coastal route, stretched through New South Wales darkness as I drove towards Sydney with my wife's critical medication. Her specialist had called that afternoon with urgent instructions about timing. The seizure medication must be taken within a 4-hour window, he explained. Missing the dose could trigger episodes that cause permanent brain damage. There is no room for delay. My phone alarm was set for 11 p.m. when the next dose was due. The nearest hospital pharmacy that stocked her specific medication was 200 kilometers away in Sydney. Every minute counted against a medical condition that had already stolen too much from our lives together over the past 2 years. Rain started falling as I reached the rest area just after 10:15 p.m., according to my dashboard clock. Heavy drops made visibility dangerous beyond the next bend, where the road curved toward the coast. My wife needed her pills in 45 minutes maximum, but driving in these conditions risked crashing before reaching help that might not arrive in time for someone in her delicate condition. The rest stop offered shelter and a chance to wait out the worst weather before attempting the final dangerous stretch to the city. I had driven this route many times, but never in conditions this dangerous, with stakes this high, for someone I loved. The facilities looked abandoned under broken security lights that cast uneven shadows. Half the bulbs were shattered or burned out deliberately to create dark areas. One maintenance building sat completely dark behind the bathroom building. Its windows reflected my headlights like dead eyes, watching approaching prey with patient hunger that made my skin crawl. I parked near the facilities and stepped out to check my rear tire that had been pulling slightly during the last 20 kilometers. The concrete was slick with rain and something else that smelled like industrial chemicals. Motor oil mixed with cleaning solvents that had been spilled repeatedly. My footsteps echoed between empty buildings, with each sound multiplied into something that suggested I was not alone in this supposedly deserted place. Footsteps that were definitely not mine began circling my car as I knelt by the tire to investigate. Someone was walking around the car in measured, deliberate steps. They stayed just outside my vision, but made no effort to hide their presence from my hearing. Heavy boots clicked rhythmically against wet concrete, announcing their proximity without revealing position or intentions. "Car trouble?" asked a voice from deep shadows near the maintenance building that seemed to swallow light. "Lucky I am here to help you with exactly what you need tonight." A man emerged from the darkness wearing coveralls that might have been official uniform or clever disguise. His hands were suspiciously clean, despite the maintenance work he claimed to perform regularly. His approach was too confident for someone genuinely offering help to a stranded stranger in the middle of nowhere, where assistance usually came with hidden costs. "Just checking the tire pressure," I replied, while standing slowly and keeping my car keys ready for quick escape. "Everything seems fine for now, but thank you for your concern." But it was not fine, and we both knew it from the moment I had arrived. My rear tire was losing air rapidly from a puncture that had not existed when I parked 10 minutes ago in perfect condition. The hole was precise and deliberately placed. It was clearly made with a sharp tool rather than road debris that would leave ragged edges and obvious accidental damage patterns. "That tire is going to need immediate patching," he said, while moving closer with steps that seemed planned for intimidation. "Good thing I have all the proper equipment in the maintenance shed that can fix you right up." My phone showed 0 signal bars, which seemed impossible so close to a major highway that carried thousands of cars daily. Electronic interference filled the air with static, suggesting jamming equipment rather than natural dead zones. He had systematically cut me off from all outside help or communication with anyone who might wonder about my location. "No cellular signal out here, unfortunately, but I can have you fixed up in no time if you are willing to cooperate. Just need you to move the car closer to my workshop where I keep specialized tools for roadside repairs." The maintenance building sat in complete darkness, surrounded by shadows that could hide surveillance equipment or restraints. Moving my car there would place me exactly where he wanted me. I would be isolated from the main road and any passing traffic that might witness whatever he had planned for desperate travelers who needed help badly enough to trust a stranger. "My wife is expecting me," I said while backing slowly toward my car and keeping him in sight. "She will call police if I am late with medication that keeps her alive." His helpful expression changed completely as the mask slipped away. It revealed something hungry underneath that had been waiting patiently for the right moment to strike. "A lot of accidents happen in weather like this," he said quietly, with practiced menace. "People get confused in storms. They take wrong turns and end up places they never intended to see again." I ran for my car as he lunged forward, with movements that showed this was not his first time. His coveralls revealed pockets bulging with tools that were clearly not meant for automotive repair work. The engine started immediately, and I pressed the gas hard as sparks began flying from the damaged rim, scraping against wet pavement. My hazard lights automatically flashed as I drove on the destroyed tire toward the highway entrance. Each impact sent violent vibrations through the steering wheel and entire frame. The sound was terrible, with metal grinding against stone and road surface. But it was the sound of escape from something far worse than mechanical damage that money could repair. He chased on foot for about 50 meters before giving up and shouting threats that the heavy rain swallowed. In my rearview mirror, he disappeared back into shadows around his maintenance building, where other tools waited for the next desperate traveler who needed help badly enough to trust a stranger. I reached Sydney General Hospital at exactly 10:58 p.m. with 2 minutes to spare before my wife's medication window closed. The emergency room staff immediately helped me contact a tow service while I gave her the pills. The seizure warning signs had already begun, with subtle tremors that come before full episodes, requiring emergency medical intervention. Police investigated the rest area the following morning and found it empty of people. But they discovered sophisticated surveillance equipment hidden throughout the facilities and ceiling panels that showed recent unauthorized access. Multiple cars had been sabotaged there over the past year, with their drivers forced to accept help from someone who understood exactly how to exploit medical emergencies and desperation. The maintenance building contained professional tire puncturing tools and military-grade signal jamming equipment. Detailed maps marked other remote rest areas across NSW where similar incidents had occurred with increasing frequency. The pattern suggested someone who studied highway traffic patterns and identified vulnerable targets before creating emergencies that forced them to need help they couldn't refuse. Before leaving the hospital, I walked around to examine our car more closely. Fresh tool marks around the tires showed deliberate sabotage. Screw marks around ceiling access panels near where we had parked revealed recent installation work that had not been done by legitimate highway maintenance crews. Someone had created a comprehensive surveillance system that turned necessary stops into hunting opportunities. Some predators set elaborate traps using weather and mechanical failures to create situations where refusing help seems impossible. They exploit the trust and desperation that medical crises create in ordinary people who just need to reach help in time to save those they love most in the world. If you enjoyed these stories, you should definitely check out my Home Alone Stories video on my channel.